The Theshan compound looked like someone had convinced crystals to grow in organized patterns and called it architecture. Ethan cross-checked his manifest tablet and tried not to feel underdressed. His cargo hauler uniform, practical, wrinkled, definitely not diplomatic, stood out among the flowing robes and formal attire of the Theshan officials moving through the courtyard. "Supply delivery for the ambassador's office," he told the guard at the security checkpoint. "Scheduled for 1400 hours. The guard, female, like most Theshans in positions of authority, studied his credentials with eyes that suggested she'd seen too many humans trying to talk their way past security. Her ears, long and elegant, swept back from her head in curves that would have made sculptors weep. They tilted slightly forward as she processed his information, then rotated back in what Ethan had learned meant neutral acknowledgement. "Proceed to the administrative wing, 3rd level. Do not deviate from the marked path." "Wouldn't dream of it," Ethan said, accepting his credentials back. The compound's security was legendary, partly because Theshans took protocol seriously, partly because this particular compound housed diplomatic personnel from a species that valued privacy like humans valued coffee. He followed the illuminated path through corridors that managed to be both austere and beautiful. Theshan architecture didn't waste space on decoration, but every surface seemed intentionally designed to catch light in specific ways. It was efficiency dressed up as art, which Ethan appreciated on a philosophical level even if it made him feel like he was walking through a very judgy museum. The administrative wing was quieter. Fewer people, more closed doors, and the sense that important things happened behind those barriers, while contractors like Ethan delivered supplies and tried not to accidentally cause interstellar incidents. He found the correct office, dropped off the manifests with a clerk who barely looked up and turned to leave. That's when he saw the child. She stood in a doorway across the hall, small, maybe 6 years old by human standards, wearing a simple tunic that suggested she wasn't supposed to be in this section. Her ears were shorter than the adults, not yet fully grown, and they pressed completely flat against her head as she stared at Ethan with an expression he couldn't quite identify. Fear. Recognition. Some combination that didn't translate across species. "Hey," Ethan said gently, stopping his retreat. "You okay?" The child didn't respond. She continued staring, her eyes silver-gray like storm clouds, locked on him with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. Then she whispered something in Theshan, words his translator implant caught but struggled to process. "Ivana Kesara, Sama." Before Ethan could ask what that meant, she turned and ran, disappearing through the doorway she'd emerged from. A guard appeared moments later following the child's path. Was there a problem? No problem, just a kid who seemed surprised to see a human. Ethan gestured vaguely. "Happens sometimes. We're probably not what children here are used to." The guard's ears tilted in agreement. "Princess Yina is curious about many things. She means no offense." "Princess?" Ethan's brain caught up. "I didn't realize, I wasn't trying to. You did nothing wrong. The child should not have been in this wing unescorted." The guard's expression softened minimally. "She will be returned to her guardian. Please continue." Ethan left with the distinct feeling he'd accidentally wandered into something above his pay grade. Princess. Right. Just another day delivering supplies to diplomatic compounds where royalty apparently roamed freely and stared at contractors like they'd seen ghosts. He made it exactly 3 corridors before the child reappeared, this time with a woman who looked equal parts exasperated and concerned. The woman, older than the child but younger than Ethan, with ears adorned in simple bronze threading, said something sharp in Theshan. The child responded by pointing directly at Ethan, more specifically at his forearm, where his sleeve had rolled up during the supply transfer. The woman's eyes widened. She approached quickly, saying something else in Theshan that made nearby officials turn their heads. Ethan's translator caught fragments. "Mark, impossible, call ambassador." "I'm sorry," Ethan said, pulling his sleeve down reflexively. I don't know what, show me your arm. The woman's standard was accented but clear. Her ears tilted forward in a way that suggested intense focus mixed with disbelief. Please, the child claims you bear a mark. I must see it. Ethan looked at the gathering crowd, at the child who continued pointing at him, and made a decision that would later seem either very wise or catastrophically stupid. He rolled up his sleeve. The tattoo was circular, about 3 inches in diameter, with geometric patterns that spiraled inward toward a central point. He'd gotten it 9 years ago under circumstances he barely remembered, some kind of field marking during a military contract that he'd had permanently inked because it seemed important at the time. The woman stared at it, then at him, then back at the mark with an expression that cycled through several emotions too quickly for Ethan to track. My mother has that mark, the child, Princess Yina said in careful, halting standard. Exactly the same, on her arm, right there. She pointed at the exact spot on her own small forearm where Ethan's tattoo sat. The corridor erupted into controlled chaos. Officials appeared from nowhere. Guards moved with sudden urgency. Someone spoke rapidly into a communication device, while others formed a loose perimeter around Ethan like he might be either a threat or incredibly valuable. I think there's been a misunderstanding, Ethan tried, his contractor instinct screaming that this was exactly the kind of situation that voided insurance coverage. It's just a tattoo. I got it years ago. It doesn't mean. It means everything, the woman interrupted, her voice barely above a whisper. She looked at him with something approaching awe. You're the one, after all these years, you're actually alive. Ethan wanted to ask what she meant, but 2 guards had appeared at his elbows with expressions that suggested he'd be coming with them, whether he wanted to or not. Princess Yina waved at him as he was escorted away, her small face bright with excitement that completely contradicted the growing certainty in Ethan's gut that he'd accidentally triggered something significant. Something that started with a child's whisper and ended with him being marched toward what looked distressingly like a formal receiving chamber, designed for people far more important than supply contractors who just wanted to finish their delivery and maybe grab dinner. The door sealed behind him with a sound that suggested he wouldn't be leaving soon. The formal receiving chamber made the administrative wing look casual by comparison. Everything gleamed, polished stone floors, crystalline walls that refracted light into patterns that probably meant something to Thessians, and furniture that appeared to have been carved from single pieces of precious materials. Ethan stood in the center of it all and tried not to touch anything expensive. The woman who entered commanded attention without trying. Tall even by Thessian standards, with ears adorned in silver threading that indicated high rank, she moved with the kind of grace that suggested both authority and combat training. Her eyes, the same silver gray as the child's, studied Ethan with an intensity that made him want to check if his uniform had massive stains. I am Ambassador Kaya, she said, her standard flawless. Senior diplomatic liaison to the Thessian people. You are Ethan Cross, civilian contractor, born Earth, currently operating independent hauler services in neutral sectors. That's me, Ethan confirmed. Look, I don't know what this is about, but I was just delivering supplies. Whatever the kid thinks she saw, Princess Yina saw a Kesara bond mark on your forearm. Kaya approached slowly. Such marks are sacred to our people. Rare, they cannot be forged or given freely. They appear only through specific circumstances. She stopped a few feet away. Show me the mark again. Ethan rolled up his sleeve, revealing the circular tattoo. In the chamber's light, the pattern seemed to shimmer slightly, an effect he'd never noticed before and attributed to stress-induced hallucination. Kaya studied it for a long moment. Tell me how you acquired this. I don't really remember the details. It was 9 years ago, during a military contract. Ethan tried to pull up memories that had long since been filed under traumatic experiences best forgotten. Evacuation mission. Contested moon called Verath. Everything went wrong, ambush, scattered units, casualties. I was with a small team extracting refugees when we got separated from the main force. Continue. There was a woman, Theshan. She was injured badly. Shrapnel, I think. Maybe broken ribs. She could barely walk. The memories came back reluctantly, like watching footage through smoke. Everyone else was either dead or trying to reach the extraction point. I couldn't just leave her, so I carried her. We spent 3 days moving through hostile territory, both of us bleeding and definitely not following any tactical doctrine. Kaya's expression shifted minimally. 3 days. Yeah. She kept trying to give up, said I should leave her, save myself. I told her we were both getting out or neither of us was. Ethan touched the tattoo unconsciously. On the 3rd day, when we finally reached friendly forces, she pressed something against my arm. Some kind of device. It hurt like hell, and when she pulled away, this mark was there, transferred from her skin to mine. What happened then? Medics took her. I got patched up, debriefed, and reassigned. Never saw her again. Ethan shrugged. I had the mark tattooed permanently because it seemed important, like a reminder that we survived when we shouldn't have. I didn't know it meant anything specific. Kaya was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice carried weight that hadn't been there before. A Kesara bond is created only through shared mortal danger and mutual sacrifice. It cannot be given, only formed when two people survive impossible circumstances, each protecting the other beyond reason or tactical sense. The mark you bear is physical proof of that bond. Okay, so it's culturally significant, got it. Ethan tried to parse what this meant for his immediate future, which ideally involved leaving this compound and never returning. I apologize if I've been disrespectful, I didn't know. The woman you saved, Kaya continued, ignoring his attempt to de-escalate. Her name is Luri. She is sister to our queen. Princess Yina is her daughter. Ethan's brain performed several computational errors in rapid succession. The woman I carried through Verath was royalty. She was leading the refugee evacuation herself, against protocol, against advice. She insisted on staying until everyone was extracted. Kaya's ears tilted back slightly. She survived because you refused to leave her. Her daughter, conceived before that mission, survived because you carried them both to safety. I didn't know she was pregnant. I didn't know she was royalty. I was just... Ethan stopped, recognizing the pattern of his own words. I was just doing what needed doing, which is precisely why the Kesara bond formed. Kaya moved to a side table, producing a small crystalline device. This mark you bear is not mere symbolism. In Theshan culture and law, it represents an unbreakable connection. A debt that transcends generations and grants both parties certain rights and responsibilities toward each other. What kind of rights? Family rights, protection rights, the right to be acknowledged and honored. Kaya activated the device, projecting a holographic document covered in Theshan script. Princess Luri has told no one the full circumstances of her survival. She mentioned a human who helped her but provided no details. Perhaps she believed you were dead. Perhaps she chose privacy over politics. The ambassador's expression became carefully neutral. But now you are here, the bond is visible, an acknowledgement must be made. Acknowledged how? Ethan's contractor instincts were screaming again. At minimum, you must be formally recognized as one who holds Kesara bond with Princess Luri. You become, in essence, honored kin. Not through marriage or blood, but through survival and sacrifice. Kaya paused. There are complications. Of course there are. Princess Luri is engaged to marry General Theon, a strategic union meant to strengthen military alliances. The Kesara bond does not invalidate this engagement, but it does grant you standing in her life and her daughter's life that cannot be dismissed. You have rights. She has obligations. This will be politically complex. Ethan sat down on the nearest furniture without asking permission. I delivered supplies, that's it. That was my entire plan for today. Plans change. Kaya deactivated the hologram. Princess Luri has been notified. She is returning to the compound. You will meet her formally, acknowledge the bond, and navigate whatever comes next. The ambassador's expression softened minimally. For what it is worth, you saved her life. You saved her daughter's life. Whatever political complications arise, that truth remains. Great. That makes me feel so much better about accidentally crashing into royal family dynamics. Ethan looked at the tattoo on his arm, at the circular pattern that had just transformed from personal memento to legal document. Can I at least finish my delivery contract first? Kaya's ears tilted in what might have been amusement. Your contract was completed 2 hours ago. You are now here entirely on matters of Kesara protocol. Fantastic. A chime sounded, soft but unmistakable. Kaya straightened. Princess Luri has arrived. Are you ready? Absolutely not, Ethan said honestly. But I get the feeling that doesn't matter. It rarely does, Kaya agreed, and opened the chamber doors to reveal the woman Ethan had carried through hell 9 years ago, who apparently remembered him better than he'd remembered her, who bore the same mark on her forearm, glowing faintly in the crystalline light, who looked at him with recognition and something that might have been relief and said simply, "You're alive. Thank the stars, you're alive." Luri was taller than Ethan remembered, but that might have been because she wasn't bleeding and delirious this time. Her ears bore gold threading that marked royal blood, and her formal robe suggested she'd been in the middle of something important when summoned. But her eyes, those same silver-gray eyes he remembered from 3 days of shared survival, held recognition that transcended 9 years and several awkward layers of protocol. "Ethan Cross," she said, his name sounding different in her accent. "I thought you were dead. After the evacuation, I searched casualty reports. Your name appeared on several preliminary lists before being removed. I assumed the worst. I got reassigned fast, probably administrative error." Ethan stood, suddenly aware of how underdressed he was for meeting royalty. "Your Highness, I apologize if I've caused problems by being here." "You have caused no problems except giving Ambassador Kaya a minor diplomatic crisis." Luri's mouth quirked upward, which she secretly enjoys though she would deny it. She approached slowly, studying him. "You look different. Less covered in blood and mud. You too, less unconscious and dying." Ambassador Kaya made a sound that might have been a cough. "Perhaps we should discuss the Kesara bond formally." "Yes, of course." Luri's expression grew serious. She raised her left forearm, revealing the matching mark, identical to Ethan's down to the smallest detail. When she moved closer, both marks began to glow faintly, pulsing in synchronized rhythm. "You kept it. I thought humans would consider it strange, that you would have it removed." "I had it tattooed," Ethan said, watching the glowing patterns with fascination. "Seemed important, like a reminder that we survived something impossible." "It is more than a reminder." Luri lowered her arm and the glow faded. "The Kesara bond is sacred. It forms only when 2 people protect each other beyond reason, when survival becomes shared rather than individual. You carried me for 3 days. I kept you conscious when you were fading. We survived together. I was doing my job. Your job was extracting refugees, prioritizing the many over the one. Military doctrine would have had you leave me." Luri's voice was gentle but firm. "You chose differently. That choice created this bond." The chamber doors opened again, and Princess Yina burst in with the barely contained energy of a 6-year-old who'd been told to wait patiently and had absolutely not done so. Her guardian, the woman from the corridor, followed, looking apologetic. "Is it really him?" Yina asked, bouncing on her toes. "The one from the stories." Luri smiled, and the expression transformed her from formal royalty into just a mother. "Yes, this is Ethan. He helped me on Verath." "You saved Mother before I was born," Yina said, approaching Ethan with less fear than their first encounter. "She tells stories about the human who wouldn't leave, who carried her when she couldn't walk, who told terrible jokes to keep her awake." "Terrible jokes?" Ethan looked at Luri. You told me human military humor involves complaining and dark observations about mortality. I found it oddly comforting. Luri gestured for her daughter to come closer. Yina, greet him properly. The child straightened, ears tilting forward in what Ethan had learned meant respectful attention. Thank you for saving my mother. And for saving me before I existed. I am glad you did not die. Me too, Ethan said, finding himself unexpectedly moved. You're welcome, though technically I didn't know I was saving two people at the time. You would have carried us anyway, Yina said with the absolute certainty of children who haven't learned to doubt people. Mother says you're stubborn. That's accurate. Ethan crouched down to Yina's level. You're the one who recognized my mark. That was very observant. Mother shows me her sometimes, says it reminds her that some people choose kindness when they could choose easier things. Yina touched her own forearm where the mark would be if she had one. Will I get a Kesara bond someday? Only if you survive something terrible with someone who refuses to let you give up, Luri said quietly. I hope you never do. The bond is precious, but the circumstances that create it are not. Ambassador Kaya cleared her throat. Princess Luri, we must discuss the formal acknowledgement. Ethan Cross holds Kesara bond with you. By law he has rights within your family. This creates complications with my engagement. Yes, I know. Luri's expression tightened. General Theon will view this as a threat to his position. I'm not trying to threaten anyone, Ethan said quickly. I don't want to disrupt your life. If there's a way to acknowledge this bond without causing problems, there isn't. Luri met his eyes. The Kesara bond grants you standing as honored kin. You have the right to be part of my family, to know my daughter, to be recognized for what you did. General Theon understands duty and strategy, but not sacrifice without expectation of return. He will see you as a rival. Are you? Yina asked Ethan bluntly. Rival to the general? No, definitely not. Ethan looked at Luri. I carried your mother to safety. That doesn't give me claim to anything except maybe the knowledge that we survived. If you're engaged to someone, I'm not here to interfere with that. The bond doesn't work that way, Kaya interjected. You cannot simply decline its significance. It exists. It grants rights and responsibilities regardless of your preferences. Then what am I supposed to do? Luri was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice carried weight that suggested she'd been thinking about this longer than the last few minutes. You honor the bond by being present, by knowing Yina, by accepting that you are part of our family in ways that transcend politics or marriage. She paused. You saved my life. You saved my daughter's life. That creates an obligation, not romantic, not possessive, but familial. You are her guardian in spirit if not in law. That's not how I think of it, Ethan protested weakly. How do you think of it? I think I helped someone who needed help. That doesn't make me special. Yina tugged on his sleeve. Why did you carry mother for 3 days if it wasn't special? Ethan looked down at the child, at her earnest expression and her ears tilted forward in genuine curiosity. Because I couldn't leave her. That's all. I just couldn't walk away. That is special, Yina said matter-of-factly. Most people can. You couldn't. That makes you family. The simple logic of it struck harder than any formal protocol. Ethan looked at Luri, at the matching mark on her forearm, and understood what she'd been trying to tell him. The bond wasn't created by the mark. The mark just made visible what had formed during those 3 days when leaving each other had become impossible. Okay, he said finally. I don't fully understand Theshan law or politics, but if you're saying I have a place in your family because of what happened on Verath, if that matters to you and to Yina, then I'll honor it. I'll visit. I'll be present. Whatever that means in your culture. Luri's expression shifted into something that might have been relief. Thank you, truly. But I'm not disrupting your engagement, Ethan added firmly. I'm not competing with anyone. I'm just someone who helped once and apparently gets to stick around for the aftermath. The general will still see you as a threat, Ambassador Kaya warned. Then the general and I will have to figure that out, Ethan said. but I'm not leaving just because my presence is inconvenient. Yina smiled, bright and genuine. Good. Mother needs someone stubborn around. The general is very serious. Yina, Lurie said in a tone that suggested this wasn't the first time her daughter had made such observations. It's true, he never jokes. Ethan tells terrible jokes. You said so. Despite everything, Ethan laughed. I do tell terrible jokes. It's a human survival mechanism. When everything is awful, make fun of it. Teach me one, Yina demanded. Yina, Lurie started. Just one. A small terrible joke. Ethan looked at Lurie, who sighed and nodded permission. Okay, why did the human bring a ladder to the bar? Yina thought seriously. I don't know. Why? Because they heard the drinks were on the house. The silence that followed suggested either translation error or profound confusion about human humor. Then Yina giggled, a sound that made both Lurie and Ambassador Kaya look surprised. That's terrible, Yina said, ears tilting upward in delight. Tell me another. Later, Lurie said firmly, but she was smiling. She looked at Ethan with an expression that held too many emotions to name. Thank you for carrying me. For keeping this mark. For being alive and here when I thought I'd never see you again. Thank you for not dying, Ethan replied. Would have made those 3 days pretty pointless. Lurie's laugh was unexpected and genuine. Yes, that would have been inconvenient. Ambassador Kaya made a note on her crystalline device. I will arrange formal recognition ceremonies, draft acknowledgement documents, notify relevant parties. She looked at Ethan. You understand this will change your life. I delivered supplies today, Ethan said. Now I'm apparently honored kin to royalty because of a tattoo. My life was already changed. I'm just catching up. The chamber felt less formal now, less weighed down by protocol and history. Yina pulled Ethan toward the windows to show him the compound gardens. Lurie followed, explaining Theshan flowers with enthusiasm that had nothing to do with diplomacy. Ambassador Kaya watched with an expression suggesting she was mentally calculating how to turn this into political advantage. And Ethan, standing in a receiving chamber he'd entered as a contractor and would leave as family, touched the mark on his arm and thought about how some bonds were forged long before either side understood their meaning. How a whisper from a child had revealed a truth he'd been carrying for 9 years without knowing. How sometimes the most important things started quietly, with shared survival, stubborn refusal to leave someone behind, and marks that glowed when brought together like promises kept across time and species. The formal recognition ceremony was mercifully brief. Ambassador Kaya had condensed what was apparently a multi-day traditional process into 2 hours of speeches, ritual acknowledgments, and Ethan trying not to fidget while Theshan officials proclaimed him honored kin, in languages his translator struggled with. Lurie stood beside him throughout, her matching mark visible to everyone, and Yina sat in the front row looking deeply pleased with herself for starting all this. General Theon attended. He stood at the back of the chamber, his formal military uniform pristine, his expression carved from stone. When the ceremony concluded, he approached with steps that suggested controlled anger. Ethan Cross, he said, his standard flawless and cold. Honored kin to Princess Lurie, quite the unexpected development. Wasn't planned, Ethan replied, keeping his voice neutral. I was just delivering supplies. And yet here you are, bound to my intended by ancient ritual, granted rights within her family. One might wonder at the timing. One might stop wondering if one considered that I got this mark 9 years ago and had no idea it meant anything. Ethan met the general's eyes. I'm not here to interfere with your engagement. I'm here because a 6-year-old recognized a tattoo and everyone decided it was legally significant. The Kesara bond is more than legally significant, Theon said. It creates obligations, connections. You are now part of Lurie's life in ways I must respect even as I find them inconvenient. Must be hard being inconvenienced by someone who saved her life. The words came out sharper than intended. Theon's expression shifted, not quite anger but close. I do not question your actions on Verath. I question your presence now. Lurie and I have an understanding, a strategic partnership that benefits both our families. You disrupt that. No, Lurie said, appearing between them with the grace of someone who'd interrupted tense conversations before. He acknowledges what already existed. The bond formed 9 years ago, Theon, whether we recognized it or not. You never told me, Theon said, and beneath the formality hurt was visible. You never mentioned him. I thought he was dead. I saw no reason to complicate our engagement with ghosts. Lurie's voice was gentle but firm. And if I'm honest, I wasn't certain you would understand the bond's significance. You are an excellent general, a worthy partner for strategic alliance, but you have never faced the kind of survival that creates Kesara bonds, because I am competent enough not to require carrying through hostile territory. The words landed like a slap. Yenna, who'd approached during the confrontation, made a small sound of protest. Ethan felt anger rise and pushed it down with effort. You're right, he said evenly. Being competent is great. Needing help is weakness. That's definitely how survival works. Ethan, Lurie warned. No, he's right. Ethan looked at Theon. Your intended needed help. I provided it. That makes me inconvenient to your political plans. I get it. But here's what I'm not doing. I'm not competing with you. I'm not trying to replace you. I'm just someone who couldn't walk away from a person who needed help, and apparently that created legal obligations. Which you accept. Which I honor. Because the alternative is telling a 6-year-old that the human who saved her mother doesn't care enough to stick around. And I'm not doing that. Theon studied him for a long moment. Something in his expression shifted, not quite approval but perhaps grudging respect. You speak plainly for someone addressing a general. I speak plainly to everyone. It's a human flaw.